What's up, Pirates? Wraith here, and I'm back with another video. And today we're going to be going over the OP10 meta post bans. And so, over the course of the last week or so, I've been doing a lot of testing and really getting to know, kind of how the meta is going to shape out from here on out. Obviously, we lost 4 great cards that were in the meta, and by great, some of them were overpowered. Some of them could have stayed, like Rygo, right? But besides that, it's like, fresh meta. The East hasn't seen a meta like this. We can't just copy and paste what they were doing because we have new contenders. And some of these, new decks like Zoro, for example, are in the meta, which beat, things like Blackbeard, which were supposed to be at the top of the meta because Dofi would gatekeep everything else. And then this had a good matchup into, everything else that was still in the meta. And so Blackbeard, I think, is taking a small hit and is no longer the best deck in the format. But we're gonna talk about every leader here and kind of see kind of where we're gonna place them. For starters, let's just go ahead and do Zoro here. So Zoro, I think Zoro is an amazing leader and it's sitting at a very good spot right now. It's very fast. You can high roll and just win games, kind of like Dofi, where if you see 2 back-to-back Jinbeis, your opponent can just not see any or cannot just do anything, and they just have to take the L. Right, you're swinging 7K at them 4 times within the first 3 turns, and it's like you're pitching 2 cards, or you're taking down to 2-1 life, and it just gets kind of obnoxious. And so this Zoro can do something very similar, where you just flood the board with animals. Obviously there's a standard list, and then there's the Zoo Zoro. Both are very fast, and so for that reason alone, I'm not putting this at the top 1 spot, but it's just the first leader that came. So each tier is not going to be in order. It's just going to be random. But I would put the Zoro in tier 1. We can name this tier 1. It's very fast. It doesn't lose to too many decks, and even those losses does it can have the opportunity to high roll, which is very beneficial. And then you can tech cards into your bad matchups and see better results. So secondly, we have the Dofi. I definitely think the Dofi of this set has gone down a tier. While I do think it's still super strong, like it just lost 1 card, which was the ability to continuously flood the board and do crazy tricks, right? Like on your 5 Dawn, you can play Jinbei, play the Teach, then use Teach effect and get your leader effect, playing 3 bodies in 1 turn, which is like insane. And so now we have this, kind of nerfed Dofi, but at the same time, we didn't really lose any of its utility, right? So it's still at the top of its game. It just doesn't have the ability to be as quick, which did hurt some of its matchups, and you have to play a little bit more mid range, a little bit slower. You have to have more top end cards, I believe, if you want to play this deck. But I think it's still in a solid spot. I definitely do feel like it did drop a bit in ranking. I do want to still put it here in the tier 2. I don't think it's tier 1. Although this is one of the decks I have tested the least, just because I knew, like, okay, well, if it was, tier 1 and it was the best deck with Jinbei, without it, it's probably somewhere in tier 1.5, tier 2. So we'll just leave it at tier 2. I do think the deck is still really strong. Blue has a lot of great top end cards. Moving on, we have Purple Luffy here. So Purple Luffy is going in the tier 1. Purple Luffy is going in the tier 1. I think this deck is shaped out to be one of the best in the meta currently. It doesn't lose to too many decks. It has a lot of 50-50s. But then again, if you go first, you're having a great time. If you go second on this deck, you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot. So the deck is consistent. You have 8 Straw Hat Searchers, the 4 cost Zoro, and the 4 1-cost Law that just search your deck for what you need. That Luffy Taro is so huge. And then you have the best defensive event in the game, right? Gum Gun Giant, a card that everyone was expecting, like, hey, maybe we should hit this card. And moving forward, as we see the Eastern meta play out, like 2 of the top decks are purple, and they're just 4 of this card, and it's just way too broken. It cycles cards. If you're at 10 Dawn, it doesn't matter. You're getting 2 Dawn, you Dawn Mine is back. It's insane. Anyways, with this, here, Purple Luffy, we're going tier 1. Moving on, we have Enel. Now, Enel, another one of those decks where I haven't tested too much. I'm going to be honest. It lost Rygo. It was already kind of in the tier 2-ish range. It lost Rygo, so it can no longer handle anything over an 8 cost, right? It can't handle anything over an 8 cost, which is like kind of concerning. Unless you're running like the superstar version and you Kuz on multiple things, you 8 cost Cat on multiple things, then you can Yamato, some big units. But even then, I feel like it's a little concerning not being able to get rid of a 10 cost Shanks that your opponent plays, a 10 cost Dofi, right? Before you just be able to boom, Rygo, play out a blocker, swing 7. You know, you're having a good time still. But now you lost that ability, and so I'm gonna put it in tier 3. I personally think the only thing Enel has going for it right now is like rush decks such as Zoro, such as Belo Betty, are starting to resurface, especially Zoro. This is probably like the best rush deck currently. And Enel beats that. Enel just beats that, right? You have great mid game pieces like 5-cost Garatsu, like the 5-cost Nami to just get rid of anything that your opponent plays, and then obviously they always need 3 swings to kill you, and so if that's not a possibility, then obviously you're gonna have a good time into that. So that's the only thing Enel has going for it, in my opinion. But yeah, I'm gonna put it in tier 3. Moving on, Belo Betty. You know, I haven't actually tested this deck. I did play it a bit last set, and it was like it was like at the low tier 2 end because you could high roll. And I don't want to disrespect any Belo Betty players, but I think if you're gonna play a rush deck, you definitely just play Zoro, right? I think Zoro is just the way to go. You have a good matchup into like Blackbeard, any slow decks that don't want to be rushed down. You probably have a good matchup into Purple Luffy as well. I'm not too certain. I haven't played it, but I would assume so, right? You play 3 bodies, you swing AAA, they're at 0. They play 1 Luffy Taro, you're going for game, right? So the thing is, there's just a better rush deck, right? The same thing with the last set, right? Dofi was like the best rush deck. So you just play Dofi. Zoro is in the meta now, which is, in my opinion, the best rush deck from my testing, and so we definitely want to play the Zoro over the Belo Betty. But Belo Betty, I think, could still have some performance in this meta right now, just because of everything else is gone. Like the Belo Betty can shine and can squeeze out some good matchups to be able to see some good results, and so you know, shout out to Belo Betty. I'm also not gonna tier every leader, just it would take way too long. But next up we have Bonnie, the biggest winner of OP10. It lost the Luchi matchup for the most part. You'll probably see some Luchi here and there, but it's not full power. Lost a lot of its greatest cards, and it's just a shell of its old version. And so I think Bonnie is the biggest winner, right? No more BY, because a good BY would make that matchup hard into Bonnie. We lose those two. Dofi's weaker, right? It's a lot more bearable. What else? Yeah, it seems about it. But like, you know, you really got to understand this color green got 3-cost Tashigi, which just goes insanely well into the meta that clears things, that bottoms decks things. Tashigi saves every other card Bonnie has, right? 8-cost Kid, it saves 5-cost Smoker, it saves 9-cost Zoro. If you just set up a perfectly timed Tashigi and boom, drop a boss monster that you need, they cannot get rid of it now without having 2 removals, being able to remove the Tashigi first and then the other body. So very, very good spot. Bonnie is in a great spot. Although it loses to Shanks, I still think Bonnie is probably, in my opinion, not even probably, from my opinion and what I've tested, I think Bonnie is the best deck. The only issue is you have a bad matchup in Shanks. If the Shanks matchup was a little bit better, I think Bonnie would hands down be like, you know, crowned the biggest winner of OP10 and the best deck in format. But obviously it loses kind of harshly to Shanks. But you know, it is what it is. Like it's still a really great deck, and you have a lot of options. And 8-cost Kid is really the you know, the card no one wants to see going into this meta just because of how good it is. Obviously there's counters for it, so it's not an actual issue that needs to be banned. But 8-cost Kid is definitely running rampant. But yeah, Bonnie is tier 1. I think this is a meta where there's a lot of tier 1 decks that you could perform on, which is really awesome. Next up we have Luchi. I'm gonna put Luchi in tier 2. We lost Ice Age, we lost Moria. I really believe that, you know, losing these 2 cards really nerfed the deck. But you have to play Luchi how Luchi is intended now. I don't think you get those free, you know, those free KOs. Let me build 4 units on my board and clear your board with Ice Age, Tempest, Moria, Rebecca, Spandine combo, and there you go. You win the game. They can't answer that, right? No more of that. You actually have to, you know, use your brain a little bit and think of different combos, different lines that you could do. The deck is still really strong, though. The deck still beats Bonnie. You know, it still beats, you know, funny enough, it beats rush decks because you have the Rebecca recursion and a lot of good low to the ground KOs, Luchi popping 2 bodies, etc. Right? Unless you like, you know, break or don't see your combos, and it can get a little, you know, scary. But Luchi still beats a lot of great decks. It still can beat Shanks with certain builds. Yeah, I think it's a solid tier 2 deck right now, and that's where my spot is. Shanks tier 1, hands down. The only drawback of Shanks is that it's inconsistent. You have 4 Uta searchers if you're even running that, and that's it. You have to draw from deck or draw from life what cards you need moving forward. Obviously, you can mulligan to try to get a better hand. But if you don't see your pieces, if you miss 2 turns, like, oh, I don't have a 5 drop, I don't have a 10 drop or a 8 drop, I only have a 3 drop and a 7 drop, no 10 cost, no 5 cost, then your turns are a little weird, right? They're a little weird. That's my only issue with a deck as strong as Shanks. I definitely think Shanks is top 3 right now. And it's very, very strong, right? The pure strength on this deck is actually insane currently. You beat Bonnie, which is like super huge. But you got to understand, it's like it's not consistent. It's like, do you want to do that to yourself? You might lose a game just because you didn't see or draw your pieces. Unlike decks like Doflamingo, which are still hyper consistent, you're still going to see what you need to see when you need to see it. Shanks doesn't have that. You might not see what you need when you need to see it, and it could be your downfall. But yeah, it's still a tier 1 deck. I think it's very strong right now into the meta. It doesn't have many bad matchups. And I think this is very huge. Huge tier 1 deck here. So we have 4 current decks in tier 1, which is like pretty impressive. I didn't think I'd ever make a tier list with this many tier 1 decks. And maybe my opinions are off and not what you guys believe, which is definitely okay. But I have been testing literally nonstop since the bans were announced. Since that Sunday morning, I woke up. I've been testing, extensively with my group, and we're slowly figuring things out. Next up, we have Lim. I want to put Lim in tier 2, but she's probably like tier 3, probably like the bottom of tier 2. I'm gonna be honest. While Lim has a couple of good matchups, it definitely struggles, right? Any type of removal deck is just gonna get rid of the whole board. It summons everything rested. You're never going to have card advantage. You're trying to save units. You're always going to be down in cards. It's rough. It's rough. You need like a really specific opening. Obviously, you can ramp to 9 cost Zoro, and some decks cannot deal with that. But besides that, I don't know if this deck has much going for it. So we're going to put it in tier 3. No disrespect to Lim players, but I don't believe it's that strong. And so, we're here now. Smoker, tier 1. This is kind of like a Shanks Jr., Bonnie Jr. Like, if you put these 2 decks together and you had a baby, you get Red Green Smoker. You take some of the best cards from Shanks, you take some of the best cards from Bonnie, you put it in this deck, and you have Red Green Smoker. You cheat out Dawn. You have extra active Dawn, 2 to 3 per turn. So you're playing a different game, right? You are a 4-life leader, susceptible to getting rushed. You have ACOS kit to try to, help yourself with that kind of a little bit. Very, very strong. All your punk hazard units get plus 1,000 power on your opponent's turn. So if your opponent ever tries to swing into your units, they're kind of just playing the game the wrong way. I think you have to ignore units. I'm actually making an article for this leader. If you guys go down to the link in the description, the first link in the description is going to be the free Red Green Smoker article that I've been working on. So I hope you guys enjoy that. Make sure to check that out. Anyways, sorry for the self promo there, but I think Red Green Smoker is in an amazing spot. I think Red Green Smoker has maybe 2 bad matchups, and then you kind of just beat everything else, or it's 50-50, which is like insane. But it suffers from the same problem that Shanks does. It's not consistent. You have 4 punk hazard searchers, and that's it. So if your opener is not what you like, it's going to be kind of rough, right? You obviously have to learn how to play out of bad hands, and you can still win even with bad hands. Like, that's not an issue, especially for top players. They make do with what they got, right? So, but yeah, it's inconsistent, and so if you want to play a really strong, powerful deck, it's one of these 2, but they're just inconsistent. And sometimes if you're losing to, just luck, it kind of does suck. Obviously, even consistent decks can break. It's just a lot less likely. But yeah, I think Red Green Smoker is in a fantastic spot in the meta currently. I'm going to put it in tier 1. Moving forward, we have Teach. You guys are going to hate me. I played Teach from October with proxies till when the cards actually came out. I made the deck up until March at One Piece Day. I do believe it is tier 1. I want to put it in tier 2 just because I feel like the decks that are in the meta kind of have a good time into Shanks, right? Or into Blackbeard, I mean. So like Shanks, 50-50, Pluffy, favored. Zoro, that's like a Dofi matchup. Like, you just get cooked. Like, if the Zoro knows what they're doing, the Blackbeard has no chance at all. Dofi, it's still about the same. Luchi, I would say, is probably more favored because people have been running more Kaidos and more options to get rid of Blackbeard's toolkit. Bonnie is now, slightly worse than it was before. Like, it used to be very favored because like whatever they played, you would just be able to get rid of and you just go from there, right? But now they have 3-cost Tashigi, so they can actually set up a 3-cost Tashigi, and if you don't kill it, they can play another unit, and now that unit is going to stay. So if they're swinging 7k banish at you with 5-cost smoker the whole time, it could get really annoying, right? So this matchup is not free anymore. Bonnie into Blackbeard. Smoker's favored into Blackbeard. And so, like, you know, you see what's gonna you see what's gonna be in the meta, right? You see what's gonna be in the meta, and you're thinking, damn, I want to play Blackbeard. It's like you're unfavored into Smoker, 50-50 still into Shanks. The Bonnie matchup's not the same. You're still unfavored into Luffy. You lose to Zoro. Personally, I had to drop the deck. After a couple of days of testing, and I realized, you know, kind of where we were standing. Obviously, a couple of days isn't enough time to figure out the whole meta and know 100%. But I know enough of the strong decks that are to come and what's going to be in the meta that I personally am not going to play Teach. I know I played it for 4 months and I was really excited for this set, knowing it was going to be a top 2 deck, you know, Dofi and Teach. Teach beats everything else in the meta. You know, Dofi is kind of like our one still bad matchup, and that kind of just like went away, right, with the bans. And so, you know, with that being said, I'm gonna put Teach in tier 2. Moving forward, we have Usopp. Man, I think Usopp is a solid tier 2 deck. I don't think it's tier 1. Many people are coping it. I think it's a fun deck though. It's a really fun deck. Would I take it to a tournament? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. I definitely think the deck is really, really good. It's really strong. It's very fun. But I do think it's tier 2. It might be like a solid tier 2 deck that you could take to a tournament in top 8. I'm not sure if I really want to play this deck in a tournament though. I'd rather stick to like something like Zoro. Very strong. Also consistent, you know. But Usopp has great combos. It has a very big variety of types of lists you can make, which is like super cool for like deck builders. You can really just like, you know, make the list in so many ways and it'd be very good. And so for that reason, Usopp will stay at tier 2 for me. Next up, Piss Kid. I actually haven't tested this. I've played against it a couple times, haven't tested it. It's probably somewhere in the tier 2 range, tier 2, tier 2.5. I'm going to just leave it here at tier 3. Don't get mad at me. This is the one deck that I'm like not too certain on. But yeah, I think it's a fun concept. Piss Kid is like super cool. Yeah, I'm not sure if we'll see too many people playing this deck, but it definitely is strong. Next up, we have Green Yellow Law. I think this deck is in tier 2. This deck is very strong. While it does have some polarizing matchups on both ends, I feel like, damn, I just like to unlock the new word in my vocabulary. I don't think I've ever said that word before. Polarizing. Anyways, I think Green Yellow Law is like positioned pretty well. Again, same issue with Usopp. I'm not sure if I would take this to a tournament just because I know the matchup spread. The deck is really good and it's really fun. If you're, you know, a top player and your fundamentals are good, this deck is definitely really interesting with the combos you can pull off. And it's probably some, you know, something I have to test moving forward, playing against this deck, because I'm still not fully aware. I do have the deck on me. I actually have it right here. It's sitting right in front of me. Let me go and show you the Alt-Art leader. But I actually need to play it more and like get familiar with it, because I don't want to get caught off guard in a tournament where it's like, oh, I don't know what this leader does or how this plays or what I need to do. So I do need to test this, right? These two new leaders. Obviously I wrote an article on Smoker, so I tested it extensively. These two I haven't had time yet because I was testing Teach, Luchi. I've been testing Zoro, and so, you know, I only have so much time. But I will ask some of my friends that have been playing these decks for their opinions. And I should have before this video, so I could give you guys a more thorough explanation on some decks like this. But I think Law is very strong, super good into this meta. And then last deck here, RP Luffy is the last one. I think I'm gonna put it in tier 2. In OP10, it was like starting to, you know, have a little breakout towards the end. Couple of Treasure Cup top 8s that this deck had. Didn't have the best run at One Piece Day, but there was still very, very good players on this deck. And, you know, I feel like the issue with this deck, again, comes down to it being inconsistent. And then it's not as strong as some of these other leaders like Shanks, right? So, you know, I still think it's a very, very solid deck moving forward. I do think it's Not as good as it was in OP09 with some of these other leaders coming out that are very, very strong, and have a crazy amount of removal. So you know, I think I think it's an okay deck in the meta. I'm not sure. We might see this one the least amount out of everything in tier 2. With so many new fun deck options, I don't see RP Luffy being played too much. But yeah, this is gonna be the list. This is gonna be the list. This is what I currently have. Um, I'm not gonna rank them individually in their tiers, but this is kind of where I'm at currently with the meta. I know it's probably not what you guys expected, but you know, from my testing and my experiences, this is where I'm at currently. Obviously, it's bound to change moving forward, especially as tournament season starts up in 2 weeks, and we get more results and we get more, you know, deck lists. You know, someone might crack a Usopp list and it's just the best deck in the format, right? Or someone just might. I know Cross is coping on it, and I think he made a bet with Guan Rong of like winning a regional with it or something like that. And so I don't know, he's just trying to lose money. Um, but yeah, this is where we're currently at, and so I'm hoping you guys are kind of on board with me here on how we came to this conclusion. Shout out to Cardi Kaizoku for this amazing deck builder feature on his website. I don't think it's out yet, but when he does, I'm gonna make sure that you guys know what website this is. I'm not sure when he's planning to release it, but I've been using it and seeing like if there's any bugs and stuff like that. So, anyways, that's besides the point. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure to check out my Metafy. I do have 10 different deck lists ready to go for the new OP10 meta with the bands in mind on my Metafy. That's for free. Now I also have a red green smoker article down in the description below for free as well. Just check out my Metafy and join up. You don't even have to pay. It's for free. Obviously in the future I will have some content that is behind the $15 a month paywall, like in-depth guides and different types of articles and more videos like this. But for now, it's all free. I don't mind. Make sure to go check out that content. It will literally make you a better player. I promise you. Even if you're not going to play Red Green Smoker, just knowing how it operates and what it's looking for and how the deck is built and knowing what cards are in the deck so you can expect it. Even playing against it, it's going to help if you just read this article. Anyways, make sure to like this video. Comment down below what your favorite deck is currently to play in the OP10 meta. Subscribe to my channel. Hit that post notification, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.